welcome to everyone to the webinar on co-leadership as a contemporary imperative being organized by WahWoman, supported by Learning Planet Institute. Friends, as we know that the whole world is witnessing significant transitions across geopolitical, technological, and business landscapes. And we believe it is an important moment to reflect on how leadership is evolving. And this brings us to the theme of co-leadership, its needs, challenges, and how it plays out in different contexts. And we are very, very delighted to have three distinguished panelists with us today. And to begin with, it's my privilege to introduce very inspiring figure, political figure and social figure, Dr. Violeta Bulc, ex-Deputy Prime Minister of Slovenia, former EU Transport Commissioner, and founder and curator of a great movement called Ecocivilisation. Next, we have incredible leader, Sanchita Gairola, co-founder and director of Vision 360 Management Consulting. She is one of India's strongest voices in sustainability, governance, and institutional transformation. And another, last but not the least, a very passionate and learned social psychologist we have with us, Ekaterina Pandharkame, who is trained in the domain of organizational psychology, social psychology, and L&D management. I welcome you all, and thank you so much for joining us as a panelist today. And since we have this great spectrum of leaders from various domains, political, social, business, I'm sure we are going to have a very intriguing, riveting, and thought-provoking discussion. In fact, I want to be very, candid with you. The word leadership evokes different emotions in different human beings. And for me, if you ask, my earliest memory of this word leadership comes from my school days. In our textbook, there was a chapter which was fully devoted to historical, political Indian leaders. So anytime I hear this word leader, subconsciously my mind creates image of some political figure. And on that note, let me break the ice with that question only about your relationship with this word leader. What your subconscious mind tries to associate with. What image comes to your mind when you hear it?
Well, let me
Anyone
break the
start.
ice.
Anyone can start.
It's when you say it, leader for me means responsibility.
Yeah.
Means respect. Means taking care of people. Means actually it's a nice memory. I don't have bad memories because my leadership experiences started with scouts. And scout leaders, they were always great. And when I became one, it was a great feeling. This connection with nature, connection with everything that we could potentially do as youngsters in the forest or on the meadows. It's a very positive feeling. So that is probably something I keep carrying further, and being faced with either business environments or political environments, seeing the concept of leadership being something else, I constantly carry hope that we can readjust it and be more inclusive and more like the Scouts type of leadership.
But as such, Violeta, you do not idolize anyone, like
No.
we have sometimes some ideal political figure. You don't have as such.
No.
Okay. No. Yes, Ekaterina or Sanchita, please.
Rajni, even I don't idolize anybody as such, because I've been really confused about this concept of leadership. The reason is, as I said, I'll be very, very candid. And I've been an entrepreneur for the last 16 years. I have seen the highs and the lows of leadership, highs and lows of everything in this business ecosystem. We were talking before we began, we were talking about the changing dynamics in the world, how the men in machine, they all are getting, if I can just say that, ruined, screwed up, I have seen everything happening, and I have seen everything hampering the business ecosystem as well. Pre-COVID and post-COVID times, I have seen the ethics, the value system also taking a hit in the
Sure.
youngsters. Probably our other speaker would be able to talk more about it and maybe able to give us the real perspective. I may be just wondering, but she may be having the first-hand experience about it. But this is what I've seen. And what has happened is, as a leader, as a co-founder in my organization, I had no choice but to evolve. And that's why I said, at times, this particular thing confuses me, because you can just change yourself. You can't change others. You can't change the society. So what happens is that there are moments when you are just in that low phase, and then you try to figure out, where do I fit in and how do I make the system better? You can't just shut your shop one fine day. It's all about evolution. So I consciously chose not to pick up one idol or one particular figure for myself. For me, myself, I'm the role model, because I'm evolving every day. Seriously.
Very clear perspective, very clear perspective. Thank you for sharing that. Ekaterina?
For me, the leader is the one who has the biggest amount of energy, I would say, and can share this energy with other people to make them want to do something. I mean, by different type of motivation, but still make people do something by building relationships, by giving them the vision which he has, to give them the picture. Sanchita said very rightly that sometimes we have some power inside, and sometimes we have nothing inside to drive others. But the leader is the one who finds the way to get it.
But you come from the place of very well-known politician. You come from Russia. You are native of Russia. Now you are living in India. So as a child, did you kind of idolize any leader? Because there have been many movements in Russia when you were growing up, I believe.
So interestingly, in Russia, the history is a little controversial, because if we see the Soviet times, the Soviet leader was great while he was alive, then he dies, another leader comes, and then he changes the history. So the previous leader is anti-leader now. Then another one comes, again it changes. Then Soviet Union goes out. It's not there anymore. History changes again, the perspective changes again, and then it's every 10 years there will be one leader, then there will be another leader. So even now, it's still controversial, I would say.
Right. So let us dive deeper into this conversation. And I have a very fundamental yet contemporary question. And I would like to open up this dialogue with Dr. Violeta Bulc. My question is, where do you see space for shared leadership in political system today? Do you think that today's challenges are too complex for one leader alone?
Okay, here comes my first frank answer. I think the political leadership is broken. And it's really hard to even try to fix it, because it started to move towards really individual personalities, where they have way too much influence, being just a playful figure or being a true, authentic, autocratic leaders, which is causing lots of troubles around the world. During the 2025, within Ecocivilisation movement, we were running a series of discussions on leadership challenged. And I realized that in spite of constantly growing number of leadership schools and courses, actually there is more confusion around us. There is less role models, if you want, in politics. There is many destructive actions with the real lack of quality dialogues and negotiations being present. So what would I say on co-leadership techniques? First of all, I believe that the future of political leadership lies in the foundation of co-leadership. When I say that in order to move into a space of peace, to move into a space of collaboration and co-creation, to move into the space of mutual respect and search for a higher, better, as at the top of individual views, I believe that the 4 elements of participatory modeling are essential. When I was like a rocket placed on the political podium of the European Union with very limited experiences in politics, I could rely only on what I knew best. And that was how to build innovation ecosystems, how to build collaborative networks, how to bring the best out of people. So my first acts as a commissioner were really to start building transport community ecosystems, to engage with people, to really bring them on board and to listen and to base political decisions on the real vibe of the community I was representing or that I was at that time leading. And to my pleasant surprise, just to say it, is these communities, the transport community, started to respond with incredible positive actions, with achieved enormous amount of really positive results in only 5 years' time, not because of me, but because I had a chance to activate the potentials of all stakeholders. So in politics, this has been so underused, mostly because politicians don't have these competences. They don't have this knowledge, and they're in a bit ignorant of even picking it up. Because in most of the countries, politics became sort of self-served, closed circle of people who make sure that they sustain each other, even if they argue, even if they fight on elections, but their core purpose is to sustain each other, to keep this circle closed, which means to promise, overpromise, and then close the door and deliver whatever they believe it's necessary to keep their power. So they're basically after power, not after caring. They're basically after really exercising this power top down, instead of building a community strength and empowering networks that they could then deliver good results on a broader horizontal level in every community. So basically the co-leadership, I believe, is probably the bright future of political framework. How to actually bring it to that framework, I think we all are in a way responsible for creating this, because we are all in a way part of political systems as well. So this is my really personal experience, and I was so grateful for that, to see how much you can achieve if you do the horizontal networks, if you bring people who are important on an ecosystem level together, empower them, listen to them, and then take the appropriate steps to deliver what has been discovered or agreed together. And they always are there to support you then, because their ideas come from this ecosystem. So once people feel empowered by their own ideas, see them being manifested, and that they actually mean something in the process of decision-making, not just to submit their votes, but actually being part of the decision-making, then miracles started to happen. Seriously. I mean, you can achieve so much, but of course, most of the politicians currently, not being trained for that, they're afraid of that. So they try to block this kind of engagements.
I really want to understand, can we safely say that for shared leadership or for co-leadership, it is emerging more in systems than in individuals? Actually, there's a need in systems, but individuals are not ready for this change.
Yes, we can see that the complexity of challenges that are around us, and I'm not talking only climate change. I'm talking also the overgrowing population, the rising gaps between poor and rich, which is counterintuitive based on the technological development that we have been achieving in the last couple of decades. Yes, that would imply that the co-leadership is something that the systems are now demanding. So it also, we rarely overlook that the best co-leader on this planet Earth is nature itself. And that is my ongoing challenge, to be able to understand how on earth the nature can constantly balance itself so well. You know, it has some intrinsic capacity of co-leadership, that it's not based on one individual tree or one individual river or one individual plant, but its intrinsic value, the way how it behaves, that constantly balances everything that is happening on planet Earth. We became a serious disruptive factor of that, because we are artificially intervening with technological advances. But we all agree at the end that no matter in what kind of forum, the planet will overlive us, right?
Yeah.
And it will find a balancing point again. So my question at this point is, do we want to be like ongoing part of this amazing planet Earth and this amazing privilege to be alive and co-create the events that are happening here, or we just want to take ourselves out and allow then the Earth that in the next couple of million years will find the balance again. So my straight answer again to your question is yes, the systems somehow are now demanding, they're pushing, the challenges around us are pushing for co-leadership and systemic innovation and relationship-based innovation, relationship-based leadership. And this is where now we are invited to respond and invited to really rethink and reimagine the way how we want to coexist. And you know what? I constantly say to my students as well, it's like, look around. Everything that exists today, somebody imagined and then delivered. Okay? So what are our dreams? How do we want to imagine the future? And are we ready to deliver it? So it's all about that. And if we're sensing, and your question applies that the systems are inviting us to reimagine also the way how we're going to play the role within those emerging systems, then let's do it. It's as simple as that. No investments needed, no money needed, just imagination. And then everything else follows.
Absolutely wonderful perspective, Violeta. I'll come back to you. Before that, I want to ask Sanchita, as a business leader and as a co-founder, how is co-leadership generally understood in organizations today, in her experience?
Rajni, first of all, I would like to congratulate Dr. Violeta. As usual, fabulous. I mean, how beautifully she correlated the nature's co-leadership to the theme of this webinar. Fabulous. Now, coming back to my question, in most of organizations today, co-leadership is understood, but I genuinely feel not quite believed in. So on paper, it is spoken of as partnership, shared responsibility, and complementary strengths. In practice, however, it is often reduced to polite division of labor. You take this, I take that, rather than a shared ownership of outcomes, especially in my part of the world. Many organizations claim to practice co-leadership, but what they really practice is parallel leadership. Two capable people running fast, sometimes brilliantly, but not always in the same direction. So it looks efficient from a distance, yet probably is fragile up close. So from my experience as a co-founder, true leadership is less about equality of roles and more about equality of consequence. Decisions may be taken by one, debated by another, but the impact is owned together, especially when things don't go as planned. So credit is optional, consequence is not. Now, fortunately, my other co-founder is my husband. So there is a subtle truth here that we don't speak about enough. And I have been really, really fortunate to have him as the co-founder. I did not go through those, pains and, proving yourself again and again. But of course, I have felt that because we did have that setup earlier with other co-founders. I felt that co-leadership works best not when trust is declared, but when it is tested. During crisis, especially financial strain, reputational risk, or moments when silence would be far more comfortable than honesty. I have, in these 16 years, I've felt that so much with others. You have to prove yourself again and again. Now in India, as per the Companies Act, there is a special criteria where to promote women empowerment, you need to have at least one woman director on board. So there are times, and again, I'm not talking about my setup, but I have seen that in most of the organizations that women leaders are taken on board to fulfill this particular criteria. MCA's Ministry of Corporate Affairs criteria. So what happens is this is more of a compulsion. Nobody gets a sense of that. Anyone can co-lead when the applause is loud. Very few can do it when the room is quiet and the stakes are personal. And that happens. I have learned that co-leadership isn't forged in strategy offsites or maybe beautifully worded vision decks. It's forged at 11:30 p.m. When a difficult call must be made, your energy is absolutely low. Certainty is absent, and neither leader is looking for validation, or none of the leader is looking for validation, only for alignment. So what I truly believe is this: leadership is not about standing at the front together. It's about standing accountable when the front collapses. That should be the moot point. Organizations today are slowly realizing this. I'm not saying that all is dark and nothing can be mended, but many are still emotionally unprepared for it. Right. For many, it's just a compulsion. Co-leadership demands maturity, restraint, and a lot of unlearning. And perhaps the hardest part is accepting that shared leadership is not a dilution of authority, but a discipline of it. So there is more resistance, this is where most resistance sits, I would say.
You spoke so clearly, and so many things came straight from your heart, because you were actually telling the world your own story, your own experience, especially sharing the space, professional space with the husband, with the spouse, is altogether different equation.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for sharing it so clearly and candidly. Now, I would love to ask Ekaterina for her perspective about, on one hand, we are talking about co-leadership, which has become so imperative nowadays. On the other hand, traditionally, leadership trained us to expect just one authority, because as human beings, we are uncomfortable with ambiguity. We want clarity. And it is everywhere. It is human nature. How do you look at this paradox from psychological perspective?
So if you look at it as a system, you'll see two different perspectives. On one side, traditional leadership is amazing because we can always rely on it. We have illusion of stability. We have illusion that everything is under control, that I might be vulnerable because I have somebody to come to. And this person will be always sustainable for everything, whatever happens in the system, whatever happens in me, in one-to-one relationships and so on. But obviously, it's a limit. It's a limit of one brain who does the direction. If we see the co-leadership phenomenon. I would say it's a little provocative, but for co-leadership, people should have stable ego because it creates insane amount uncertainty. If we are sharing power, if we are sharing consequences, if we are sharing responsibility, it also means that I am the one who also does it, and I'm the one who also doesn't do that, which creates a lot of uncertainty, which creates a lot of anxiety in that. And why do I say that people should have stable self-esteem? Because if I know myself well, if I know that certain situation in organization, in the world around, whatever happens, if I know that this makes me feel anxious, and I will, solve my anxiety by several types of actions, by pushing somebody, by pressurizing my employees, by organizing the culture inside the company in a certain way, which solves my anxiety, then I can deal with it. But I can battle with most of the people who try to do that, not always successfully. They don't think about how they solve their own anxiety. And their actions become not clear and a little elusive. So on one side, traditional leadership is great because it has certain types of actions, certain responsibility, certain picture. For me as a founder, for me as a leader, for me as a manager, I know that I am doing that, and my personality is very clear. On the other side, co-leadership creates much bigger effect because the system, it's a very known rule that the system is always bigger than each and every member of it, even summarizing today. It creates bigger impact, but we have to deal with anxiety, we have to deal with uncertainty, we have to deal with jealousy, we have to deal with the exception that somebody else might shine brighter than me. So that might create some difficult feelings which we solve subconsciously. So here is the main part.
So it should be kind of prerequisite for co-leadership that one should have stable egos. If two people are coming together for any sort of co-leadership, the first prerequisite is you should have stable egos, stable mind, stable head. Yeah.
Stable self-esteem. You should know what makes you feel vulnerable. You should know what makes you feel anxious, and how do you solve this anxiety. I'll give you a very common and simple example. The company is on a growth stage. There is a rapid growth, for example, from 500 people to 700 people. It's a big growth. Revenue is growing, investors are coming, they're pressurizing, they're giving money, they want something back. And here we see that there's a founder, and he says, we have a co-leadership. He gets a board and he starts talking about how can be the system and all. They decide something on a meeting. I call this serious face meetings because everybody talks with passion and all. But then what we see in 1 week, in 2 weeks, pressure from investor keeps coming, right? And some processes, they're not very obvious and linear. So the consequences will be not in a month, not in a year sometimes. That founder, what he does, being anxious that he will not show the results in front of investor, he starts pressurizing the team in a way which doesn't give the space to the team to give these non-linear steps. You cannot measure it because it's all, water, it just comes through the hands. But this is how it's solved, and it happens in a lot of companies when unnecessary extra action comes out of solving difficult feelings, even when it's called co-leadership.
Very fair perspective, Ekaterina. And I have another tangential question for Violeta. Because Violeta, you have got vast experience of political leadership, and based on your observation, like Ekaterina was just talking about stable ego, human emotions which are darker, especially when two people come together on the position of power and accountability. But of course, people are more associated with power than accountability in general. So, what is harder to share in co-leadership? It is power, visibility, or accountability?
Well, let me break this into maybe a couple of elements. First of all, I would like to just appreciate comments from by Sanchita and Ekaterina. They really are not only points of view from corporate environment or from a psychologist environment. They actually apply to all ecosystems. Yeah, the same challenges, the same kind of thoughts apply to political systems as well. And I can compare that. I was for many, many years in global and local corporate environments, then entrepreneur and just in one phase politician. So first of all, I would say that power, for me, is part of the old leadership style. Okay, and power is not really inviting, let's say, distributed networks, horizontal collaboration, empowerment of people, because that's not the nature of power. The nature of power is, I want to keep the tight control, right? So, and that's why, especially in a complex environments like or situations like we have found ourselves on a global scale these days, one person just cannot grasp the complexity and size of the challenges. So that's why we're failing. That's why we keep seeing all these almost non-understandable decisions, because they are coming from the position of power, and that cannot sense the systemic interventions that are needed and comprehensive solutions that are needed in order to respond to these complex challenges around us. So on the other hand, we then have this distributed leadership that is based on relationships, that is based on really empowering of other people, where you are, I call it a transparent ego, right? Not dark, that nobody, the light cannot shine on anybody else, but really profoundly crafted ego. So when the light shines on you, it transparently shines on everybody around you. Yeah. So and that is the type that we need, that can engage many minds, engage many frameworks, engage many ecosystems, communities into generation of good ideas. I call it mass innovation ecosystems, where all these different ideas can come forward, and then you can put together a comprehensive solution. And that is in contradiction with power. So I think we are invited at this point to maybe change vocabulary. I try really hard not to use the word power in my common language, but strength, that I associate with this transparent ego. The strength to listen, the strength to engage, the strength to hold space for the emergence to take place, right? And then it's also easy to achieve transparency and accountability on each level, on each node of the network, so that we can avoid what Sanchita was saying, this challenge of accountability, that everybody wants power, but nobody wants to be accountable or responsible for. Yeah. So when you create these horizontal structures, you ensure transparency, then you can also ensure accountability and responsibility, and which in a very transparent level. That's why I have this real faith in the power of networks, and movements are just one forum of this kind of horizontal networks that are showing us that that is possible. So I hope with more and more of these global movements, transparent horizontal networks, we will learn and start trusting that you can achieve even bigger results through strength of the network versus the power of an individual. I hope we have overcome all these isms that call for individual, only for individual accountability or individual exposure, being socialism where everything was also very hierarchical and only the top was able to take decisions, or capitalism where everything is put in the hands of individuals can do whatever they want. It doesn't work. So we are invited at this point of human evolution that we go beyond isms. And the movements, networks, distributed frameworks are teaching us that that is possible. And for that, all we are invited to do is to have maybe one or two shared rules, one or two shared values that are a guiding principles that when people are trying to do good, they can always align themselves with a universal understanding of good. Like, for example, in Ecocivilisation movement, we have two rules: 100% transparency and sharing. And the second one is do what it feels right.
Absolutely.
I never command anybody in any country, you have to do this or you have to do this. No, I'm listening. What do you think from your community point of view? It's important for Ecocivilisation to evolve. Let's hear it. Let's connect it. Let's bring others on board and hear what others think. And then we will have sort of a common understanding of those few elements that keep us together and keep us sort of aligned. And I would use the word safe because people are most creative when they're safe. Yeah, there is this wrong perception when they say, and leaders push employees, oh, you gotta deliver, and more I push you, better you will deliver, better you will innovate. No, you will innovate, you will deliver, but those results will be very short-term results, and they will probably cause a lot of troubles along the way. So yes, you need a pause, you need to rethink, you need to reflect, you need to feel it, right? That's when we say that it's time, and the co-leadership, I think, is bringing this forward very strongly, that the mind gets mastered by the heart. The mind, who is always short-term oriented, needs a long-term perspective to do the right short-term steps. So once we connect heart with mind, then we have this beautiful alliance of long-term understanding of consequences and a short-term action energy.
Absolutely wonderful words you have said. And I really love your lexicals. Some of the terms, some of the terms are so powerful, like you use this thing, profound, crafted ego. This is such a powerful term to gather, put it. If you, I really want to understand from Ekaterina, how do you prepare leaders with profound crafted egos? But of course, it's a very challenging word. But uh, having said that, I would like to say, Violeta, that in the span of 5 years, I have experienced your leadership. And whatever you were, saying through this reflection, that was resonating so well because I have experienced it. So thank you so much for your words. And Sanchita, would you like to share your experience too?
Instinctively, most people would say power of visibility. If you're talking about co-leadership. In my experience, however, the hardest thing to share, again, I'll come back to that, is accountability. That's the crux, particularly when outcomes are inconvenient, uncomfortable, or publicly messy. So for me, broadly, even at the micro or the macro level, co-leadership is governed by accountability. So this is one of the foundational stones. Power can be distributed through structures, titles, mandates, reporting lines. Visibility can be managed through optics, maybe panels, press, or positioning. But this is one thing, accountability is something which has a way of following you home. It doesn't stay neatly contained within organizational charts or, quarterly reviews. It shows up in personal conviction, reputational weight, and, the knowledge of what one stood by when it mattered. And believe you me, this is my first-hand experience, and I have seen this especially in the last 1 year. I have seen many co-leadership arrangements where success is jointly celebrated, but then failure is very subtly reallocated. And that's across the globe. I've so many friends, so many colleagues who have narrated their stories, and everywhere it's the same thing. Thankfully, not in my case again. Sometimes it's passed downwards, sometimes sideways, and sometimes, absorbed very, very silently by the person perceived as more stable, more resilient, or simply just less likely to walk away. And that to me is where co-leadership either matures or fractures completely. So there is an unspoken rule in leadership. Applause travels faster than responsibility. Recognition can be immediate, reckoning is deferred. And again, if you're talking about this thing, co-leadership asks us to reverse that instinct, to slow down applause and speed up ownership, especially when decisions carry consequences that cannot be explained away or softened or deferred to process. Interestingly, when women are in co-leadership roles, they're often expected to absorb accountability more subtly, almost as kind of emotional labor, if I can say that, while power and visibility remain more negotiable. So this isn't always intentional, but it is deeply patterned. It's culturally inherited and therefore rarely interrogated.
Very well said and very well observed. Ekaterina, what psychological perspective do you bring to both of these experiences that have been just shared with us?
Yeah, I am listening to you, and thank you so much for your experience and your thoughts. Give me some idea, because generally, what we would say that obviously power and visibility will be more strong for people because it connects to personality. If I do something right, it connects to my action. If I am strong, it connects to my personality. We are speaking about self-esteem. We are speaking about where am I in this social group? What is my range over there? But now listening to you, I am also thinking about some other perspective that if per se we are four founders of different companies, four of us will have different needs behind the building of that company. Some of us might want to have things right, just to be done in the right way, to be everything in order. Then it doesn't matter if I have power or not. I need things to be done in such a way. Then it will be more important. Some of us might want to have appreciation, to be the biggest star on the sky, to have the biggest amount of medals and papers and the letter of appreciation and so on. So the need will be different again. Then visibility will be much more important. Some of us might be the one who needs to be respected. So he needs to be visible, but visible with some kind of relations, not just visible, but respected also. And some kind of us need to have a legacy after us. I had a lot of clients. I think most of clients who are founders, who are building startups, like serial entrepreneurs, they're saying they want to build legacy. They want to leave something behind them. Basically, it's something between I want to be seen and I want something grand to happen.
So
Can I ask a question here? Because
yes, please.
This is something very interesting, and the thought that I got while I was listening to Ekaterina was that why would they want to leave legacy? I would expect they want to grow. They want to grow as individual. They want to grow as human beings. But how come we're still driven so often by just being seen? Why do we need this confirmation from the outside when the growth inside gives you so much satisfaction? There is no need really for confirmation from the outside. You just keep doing what is right. where do you see, or I mean, do you see that we can actually move into more self-satisfactory mode? Like Sanchita said, I need to be happy with myself, if I can translate what you said at the beginning. I'm my own role model. How would you explain that? Or can you see actually us moving from this, I want to leave the legacy, which means, I'm the one who sets the rules of this world, or I'm going to say, I want to grow and give the best back to the society. And that's my inner satisfaction and my inner reward.
Yeah. What I'll say right now will be not very happy or not very nice might be, but I see different traumas in that, not more than that, unfortunately. And some traumas are before verbal, because when the baby comes, he knows how to eat, how to take more. He doesn't know how to give. He doesn't know how to share. He knows only how to take his mother's breast. So some kind of traumas happens on this age. The person grows, and unconsciously, of course, some development comes, but unconsciously this need of eating. I want to eat more. When I'm the small baby, it's enough for mother's breast. But when I'm adult, mother's breast is not enough. Then I will have some other instrument to eat. I will eat with money. I will eat with power. I will eat with appreciation. So it's still this very hungry stage of life when I'm never satisfied.
So I think we are actually talking about Maslow's hierarchy level of human needs. From basic needs, very abdominal needs as a child, when we move to our ego needs, worldly needs, social need, then that whole chart.
There
Yeah.
was an amazing lady, Nancy McWilliams. She created the system which is around the Maslow one, but she explains more of how the mindset works in that conditions.
Very interesting theory.
So
and
there
very
is no
interesting
hope,
perspective.
Ekaterina. There is no hope.
There is.
Is this also cultural? Do you feel that this is also cultural? This, leaving behind the legacy? Because I see this, especially in this part of the world.
Yes.
What do you say, Rajni? I mean, you might have felt that.
Yeah.
Right?
And we definitely, I have few questions regarding that too, and I was about to jump to that side, because naturally the discussion is flowing in that direction. So I think we have partially discussed about it. We have already started discussion in all the directions. So let's streamline the discussion, and in this segment we will focus on gender and co-leadership. So I would definitely love to start with Violeta. Very clear question, because Violeta is not playing with words. Whatever she feels like, she's saying that. So my question is very straight. Does gender really influence how co-leadership is practiced or perceived in politics?
Definitely, but I would maybe surprise you saying that that's not biologically defined. I would say that that is rather historically or culturally defined. Yeah. So, but while I'm saying that, we started to recognize, and I could feel it, I could see it everywhere, that they are sort of feminine and masculine approaches to things, which are not always identified with men and women per se. They are appearing in men and women, both sides. Yeah. However, cultures and historical, especially this sort of manhood era, we tend to emphasize more masculinity side in women and men, and try to put it forward as a successful behavior. I'm happy that I live in the part of history again where we're trying to overcome that, trying to understand that in order to have a comprehensive systemic solution, you need to include both. Which often also means then that we need to invite men and women to bring these both qualities in balance forward. Why am I saying that? Because on one hand, like let's say female or energies are more inviting us to be present. When you you raise your kid, you have to be present. Otherwise, that takes a different path. The kid moves into a different direction. So you have to be fully present. Empathy is associated with that, relational intelligence, and holding the space for others to evolve. How much do we see that in politics? There are exceptions. I'm not saying so. There are exceptions, but usually they are then crushed by power because they are challenging it too much. And as if the power is still empowered, then it will crush that. But on the other hand,
yeah. Please carry
but
on.
on the other hand, I don't want to deny the real need for decisiveness, for focus, for action, for visibility. That is needed too. I agree with that. So what I'm trying to learn is how to bring this imbalance and how to bring that imbalance within me, because I recognize both sides in me. I was a sport person. The game was to win, but all of a sudden I realized I don't really like winning. I love sport, but not that much winning, So then the process of this balancing female and male qualities started to take place. And I'm not there yet, but at least I'm becoming aware of all that, and I'm trying hard to do it, to bring it in this balance. So what I'm saying is that this is again the strength versus power. When I was a director at Telecom Slovenia, I had a very ambitious team, and not even thinking about it, they were half women, half men. And because we had this full spectrum of thoughts and recognition of market needs and recognition of behaviors, and we could absorb different techniques to actually identify goals and then go after them and deliver on our ambitious goals. I would claim that was because we had men and women in the team. And later on, when I had my own business, without really thinking too much, all of a sudden, when we had this HR testing, we realized, wow, we are a perfect team because we had half men, half women, and it's, again, we were able to assess the customer's needs really well. We were able to serve them. No, we did not overpower our customers. We were serving them. We were sensing their needs and then addressing them, the true needs, not what they wanted. Customers never pay for what they want. They pay for what they really need. Yeah. So, and we were good at sensing their true needs. I could claim very clearly that would not happen if we had only women or only men. Yeah. And even when I was a politician, I had this probably most profound experience, because when I came to Brussels, there were 23% of women on top posts. And President Juncker at that time, the Commission's president, said, I want this Commission to be more balanced. I need more balanced solutions to our challenges. So by the end of our mandate, I want to see more than 40% of women on the top posts. It almost looked impossible, but you know what? We got up to 43% in 5 years' time, with only one simple rule. We will be fair in the decision-making. We will make sure that the best candidate wins. Mm-hmm. And women started to apply, because women didn't want to apply before. And I could go on and on and on with some incredible stories from the transport world. But my point is that we are invited to be careful the way how we deal with gender issues, not to scare anyone with that, but to really encourage to see the positive consequences with the good stories. And I believe that is probably one of the important enablers to move from a power-led leadership to a co-leadership and to a horizontal empowerment of people. Because once you start collaborating, you see that everybody has its role. So you don't exclude, you include. You look for solutions that include different characteristics, different behaviors, different competences, because that's what networkers allows you to do. You spread accountability and responsibility, and people can see the value that they have.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing such encouraging anecdotes from real life. And that offers so much authenticity to the discussion. And Sanchita, Violeta just shared her political perspective about gender and the success of co-leadership and how genders are seen in political world. What is your experience in organizational world? Where do you see that how women or men are seen versus women, like exactly your position, how that co-leadership is seen by the society, especially in patriarchal and conservative society like India?
Yes, Rajni, there is a shift, and it is often more subtle than spoken. When a woman leads alongside a man, authority tends to be read before it is heard. The same decision voiced by two leaders is frequently interpreted differently, not because of intent, but because of long held expectations about who is meant to lead and how authority is meant to sound. Tone, posture, even pauses are unconsciously decoded before substance is fully processed, believe you me. In mixed gender co-leadership, like in my case, I've noticed that authority is often triangulated. The man is assumed to represent direction, while the woman is presumed to represent balance or consensus. They are perceived to be like human resource person or managing administrative side of the organization, etc., etc., not strategy. Even when both are equally strategic and decision makers and accountable. So this triangulation shapes how teams seek validation, escalate decisions and narrate success. I have seen that in my organization as well. And believe you me, it wasn't coming from the co-founders. It was generally there in the psyche of the team members. This is how they perceive. This is probably, again, a cultural thing. This is how they see a woman. Okay, she's soft and probably she won't say many things. And I don't know how many of you will agree with me on this, that women in co-leadership are often expected to be both the compass and the cushion. The ones who hold the moral direction while also softening the edges, absorbing tension, ensuring continuity. So it's a remarkable expectation and one that is rarely articulated, yet widely practiced. And what makes this dynamic particularly interesting is that it's rarely hostile, it's habitual. And habits, as we know, are far more persistent than bias we can name and confront. They live in meeting rooms, email chains, and who gets called first when something goes wrong. So if, I'm getting a mail, for example, a chairman of an organization, and they will write without even figuring out, they will write Mr. Sanchita.
Oh.
Or they will send me a mail knowing an Indian, knowing that Sanchita is a female name, they will write Dear Sir. So these are the, small things that I'm telling you. These are not hostile things. These are habitual. Over time, I've learned that the real shift doesn't occur when perceptions change. It occurs when outcomes become predictable. When people consistently see that decisions hold, direction is clear, accountability shared, the gendered lens gradually loses relevance. And familiarity with competence is one of the quietest correctives we have. Authority in the end is not claimed, I believe. It is settled into. It grows through repetition, reliability, and the calm confidence of standing by decisions without, theatrical assertion. I've stopped doing that completely. I probably must have done in the early years of my entrepreneurship. I've become calmer now. No need to waste your, energy and your resources on this. So yes, the perception does exist, but the most effective response is not correction. It's consistency. And consistency practiced long enough has a way of re-educating rooms without ever raising its voice.
Wonderful. Absolutely. And being an Indian myself, I totally agree. And I have seen it happening. And even I would like to add one more point. I have seen various famous figures in our country, women who were called Sir, and they loved this title because they felt very powerful, that we have actually got that place of man. Yes, Ekaterina. Ekaterina, what psychological perspective would you like to add to this?
Yeah, I would like to add some psychological perspective and also multicultural, because having experience in Indian companies and, for example, in Russian companies and some of European companies, I would say that the perception of women is completely different. I had an experience where in 18 people of top management in India, 2 were ladies. And out of 1 hour of discussion, the voice was never raised by ladies. So they were there, but as a nominal point. Okay. And as Sanchita said, I picked up this phrase and found it very realistic, that women are asked controversial requirements. And especially I felt it myself in India, because in Russia, the culture is opposite. The culture is matriarchal. It's more feminine, just because of population of female is much bigger than male population. So the requirements are not that controversial as, for example, in India. In India, women supposed to be less aggressive, still controlling and demanding, because the things has to be done. So this is from cultural perspective. From individual perspective and from gender perspective, I was listening to Violeta, and you said amazing phrase that co-leadership is when you include somebody. And then we see how we include. When man includes a man, we see that as a partnership, equality, as a something which naturally goes. When man includes woman, we see it as something condescending. He has power, he gives her an opportunity to join. That's how it's usually seen, unfortunately, especially in patriarchal countries. When woman includes woman, we see it as, okay, she's not getting it alone, so she's getting a company. We're not talking over here about aggression in terms of changing something outside. We are talking about women including women as a something which gives them power only together, as if she's not capable alone. And when woman includes men, that feels that something is misplaced, as if it should be opposite. Condescending.
Yeah, that's an interesting.
Can I bring one attention to one word? Because I keep saying this, that we have to start changing vocabulary. What you just said, Ekaterina, have you ever thought about the word history?
That is
story. Yeah?
Okay. Okay, there's a gender in that also.
So if we want to continue this path of inclusion, which will be genderless, I think we have to be careful about the words that we use, because the words have vibrations, and on a subtle level, they empower things that we might not want to be empowered anymore. And this is such a beautiful example, history, which everybody uses all the time. And it's always his story. It's not her story.
And I had some controversial point to tell you. Maybe we can have some good discussion on that also. So on the other side, this is something which we have. Man is associated with aggression, with something bringing, with ending, and all. Woman is associated with emotions, with coping up, with
intuition.
Everybody feels well and all. So this is something which we have. We have historically, and it happened. So on the other side, in present, we can use it, include both. If I know that I am a female, and if I come to the power, I can use this female strength, male strengths as I can. So,
Ekaterina, we should be everywhere, and we should be seen equally.
Correct.
Sometimes we are there for the sake of position. We are just filling just because they want to create the gender ratio equal. But we are only on paper. Actual decision maker is somebody else. So I think we should be everywhere and we should be seen equally. Like Sanchita was also giving example of how society, like Mr., Miss, these are not acceptable when you are seeing two individuals equally. It means there is something in your heart which is stopping you to treat both people equally, and that is very deep down thing.
Yes.
So from that deeply human thing, we will move to the mitigation part of co-leadership, because now I need to change the direction of this discussion a little bit, because this is very important segment, mitigation, which perhaps in the current society everybody can understand why it has become such an important thing, the way world is moving and the way new political moves are happening around. So I want to understand, in the situation of conflict, do leaders themselves need mitigators because they themselves are leaders? And who can serve those mitigators in practice? From Violeta, I would like to start in political scenario.
That's a bit hard question, actually, because it's so much related to the whole context. Depends what kind of system are we talking about.
Can we hypothetically take any situation, maybe today's situation, 10 years back, or maybe some hypothetical case, and anything?
Okay, let me
Maybe your
try.
experience.
Yeah, let me try to put it this way. If we want to change, if we might want to bring some change to this concept of co-leadership, then first thing I think about is how do we relate to failures? In a power-driven leadership style, that is your problem. That is a big mistake. You have to be punished. Yeah. And leaders love to misuse that, especially if they're control freaks, just to prove their power. So, but in a co-leadership style, that is a great source of learning. And you can transfer the failure in the best positive experience for tomorrow. So what I'm trying to say, maybe it's not mitigation, it's not always related to people, it's related also to the framework, to the processes, to the way how we deal with things. I have one burning question related to that is, how come that in the last couple of years from all peace negotiations, women were removed? Yeah. Because they brought hope for peace, would be my answer. Yeah. So it's what I'm trying to say here is values and purpose makes a difference. Again, it's not a matter of individual, it's a matter of contextual framing. So in co-leadership, in order to enable co-leadership, if you have values, it's and shared purpose, it's easy to co-lead because people know and they can empower themselves. If you don't have that, then one person can claim the definition of what's right and wrong and which way you have to go. So I'm not sure if I answered directly, but I see that there are different scenarios within which this question can be answered. And I'm personally more after setting the framework, setting the space, setting the commonly understood purpose or values within which then you don't need to have an individual who will mitigate this, but you empower individuals to be self-conscious enough to deliver within those agreed frameworks.
Yes,
And
this question itself has so many subjectivities, so there can't be a blanket answer to it.
yes.
However, you have very beautifully tried to cover some aspects, some core aspects. You have tried to brought together to kind of answer it. And I mean, yes, please, you want to add something more to it to this
No,
question?
please, I'm eager to hear my colleagues how they're gonna explain.
I'm sorry,
explain that.
we are a bit pressed for time. That is why I'm running a little bit faster.
Mhm.
So I apologize for that. Sanchita, in your organization, do you have any mitigators if there are some interpersonal challenges or some mismatch in the expectations or something like that?
Okay, so this question actually is layered, but I'll again try to answer. I have come to see that most conflicts in co-leadership are mostly, not interpersonal. They're structural. They arise not because, and again, mostly because leaders disagree, but because systems assume constant symmetry, like equal presence, like equal availability, or equal immediacy. Real life, of course, rarely complies, especially in kind of mixed gender setups. Leadership systems are often designed for ideal conditions, not human ones, I believe, and conflict emerges when reality refuses to perform on schedule. My approach, therefore, has been to resolve conflict before it appears by designing leadership frameworks that are resilient to imbalance. I have told earlier that mine is a setup where my co-founder is my husband. So it was more of a challenging situation for me, in real life. Not reactive frameworks, but anticipatory ones that assume fluctuation as normal rather than exceptional. So what happens is, I'll give you a very candid reply. As a woman co-founder, and especially in a setup like society like India, where even if you're working as hard as your male counterpart, doing exactly the same things outside of your personal setup or home, once you're back, probably, even if not equal, 70-30 ratio would be there, where 70% of the work in most of the households would be on women. So you both have those 24 hours in hand, but it depends upon you how beautifully you manage that. So that the thing of multitasking is always on you. I'm a little digressing, but it's a broader thing that I'm trying to address. One mitigator in my case that can practically particularly be helpful and I rely on is separating authority from activity. Authority must remain stable even when activity fluctuates. So this distinction is subtle but transformative. It allows leadership to remain credible even when visibility or pace temporarily changes. So while I was managing, I have always been managing the entire back end, and he was managing the front end. The perception that grew was it's he who actually is the founder, and probably I'm just helping. So this helping thing, side of being the co-founder and managing the strategy of the organization, I've always heard. Even I'll be very candid. In just a month back, probably I was talking to somebody, and a woman leader, she told me that for past 16 years she's been helping the founder. But sometimes you just try to live with those realities. When organizations conflate the two, absence is mistaken for disengagement and silence is misread as uncertainty. So you have to speak up as well. That is where unnecessary tension begins, not from disagreement again, but from misinterpretation. And if I can just say that strong systems don't demand perfection from people, they compensate for humanity. So for me, conflict resolution and co-leadership is about design, or probably less about confrontation. I can't afford that. When leadership is carefully structured, when it expects complexity rather than denying it, conflict loses its urgency and often its relevance as well.
Right, absolutely. And Ekaterina, would you like to add some comment to it or your perception?
Mm, I've never had a co-founder, okay, or I've never had a person who would be in top management with me in the teams.
Okay.
We can use it, so I don't think my experience will be valid over here.
Right, right. So, very quickly, I want to ask all three of you, what is one non-negotiable for co-leadership to succeed across politics, business, or social systems? I mean, anybody can start. What is one non-negotiable? regardless of industry, regardless of area, field. Yeah, please.
I would like to start.
Yes, please.
I would say this rule is to speak in the same language. Same language, not in terms of formal language, but in terms of what I expect, what I need, how I see, and be transparent, as much transparent as it possible
Mm.
for the same matter. Because mm, if I see that
Mm.
me and my colleague, my manager, my founder, my friend see the flower in the same color,
Mm.
it's easier for us to describe how to take care of this flower.
Mm.
If we see
Okay.
the goal in the same language.
Mm. Okay, great. Important point. Transparency is very important. Violeta.
Maybe I can come in. First thought comes in is through participatory modeling and engagement.
Mm.
I think you cannot do co-leadership without that. But then the second thought is more related to the way how we perceive leadership itself. And I would say that we are in time when leadership all of a sudden becomes really a shared capacity to sense, where intuition becomes part of the leadership qualities, then to hold space, and co-evolve within the emergence. I think leaders of a new era are invited to a bit forget about the past and more focus on what is emerging now and try to serve the emergence.
That resonates very strongly. In fact, people should have that ownership and sense of the responsibility. With the right responsibility, accountability also comes, and people only want to enjoy the right part. Ownership part is okay, not my job. Great point. Yes, yes, please, Sanchita.
So if I had to name one non-negotiable, it would be continuity of intent, even when continuity of presence is disrupted. Co-leadership is often discussed as two people leading together. In reality, it is about two people committing to the same purpose, even when they are not equally visible, vocal, or operational at the same time. Leadership endures not because roles are constantly mirrored, but because direction remains coherent. So across systems, co-leadership succeeds when intent is institutionalized, not personalized, when purpose is embedded deeply enough that it does not rely on your mood or momentum or momentary availability. Now, when direction does not wobble because one voice is momentarily quieter or one role temporarily shifts, when the organization understands what is being protected, even as methods evolve. So, good co-leadership, I believe, is rather like good architecture. You don't notice it when it's working, but you feel immediately unsettled when it isn't. Its strength lies in what it carries silently, not in what it announces loudly. So stability is not the absence of change, but the ability to absorb it. That to me is the essence of co-leadership.
Absolutely. And in a way, you have kind of reinforced Violeta's point also. And so very important takeaways. And I have just one more quick question. You're talking about unlearning. So what is one assumption about co-leadership, or for that matter, leadership also, that we need to unlearn to truly embrace co-leadership? One thing
We need
that
to
we need.
say good. I feel that we need to say really goodbye to power. And
Okay,
to
goodbye
start,
to power. Okay.
and start enjoying holding space for the emergence, which means instead of really be constantly responsible for knowing everything, more to see yourself as a vessel who, who is carrying any passengers and crew safely from harbor to harbor.
Very pragmatic. Yeah. Yes, please.
I think I'll second Violeta's point. I feel that one assumption we rarely examine is the belief that leadership must be emotionally neutral to remain legitimate. We expect leaders to absorb pressure endlessly, respond with perfect composure, and operate as though personal bandwidth, health, or human strain have no bearing on decision making. In reality, leadership is it's a human condition. Conflicts often emerge not from competing agendas, but from moments when a leader's internal capacity is stretched beyond what the role externally demands. Whatever I'm saying, I have actually gone through that. So I have started seeing the other side or the world through another lens as well. Probably for 15 years, what I saw and what I saw in probably 1 year, it's completely different. And it gave me the whole perspective. Communication thins, energy shifts, judgment slows, and these changes are frequently misread as, disengagement, control, or indifference. What's missing in most leadership conversations is capacity awareness. We speak comfortably about accountability, but rarely about bandwidth. We discuss performance, but avoid the uncomfortable truth about physical health. Emotional resilience and sustained stress directly shape leadership behavior. So leaders are allowed to err, yet they are seldom allowed to be human. So ultimately, evolved leadership is not emotionally absent. I believe it's emotionally intelligent.
Absolutely. Ekaterina.
I would say that from one perspective, it would be nice to unlearn how to be a hero and learn how to be the one who connects and give the space to share. But from psychological perspective, I would say that it's amazing to unlearn how to solve subconsciously difficult feelings, which are difficult to recognize and which are difficult to understand. So that would be the best thing to unlearn. And we need to learn how to understand ourselves better, to know what actually we are serving and what actually we are doing.
Violeta, you ran the series on leadership this year. And that discussion was very enriching. And I'm sure very soon Ecocivilisation is coming up with a book also. But given that, do you still feel that you have had enough discussion around leadership, or there are still conversations that we need to have very, very seriously, and actually practically it should be implemented in boardrooms, in political rooms, in EUs, in India, anywhere? Do you think that you need to have way more conversation and real conversations around that, and someone listens to that?
Well, Rajni, this is absolutely the case. We see this book just a capture of the thoughts in this moment, just to understand where we stand today and to be the platform for many, many more new discussions and also implementations, because the year of leadership challenges show how many diversified experiences we all have, how many different points of view we have, but they also put forward some of the elements that are really encouraging us to go beyond what we know today. And you just mentioned one, how to unlearn what is no longer serving us and how to welcome new capacities and new knowledge and new wisdoms that we need to be the proud ancestors of future generations. So no, this is, I hope, just the beginning. And I hope that this discussion is also sort of a continuation of that, the same frequency. And what we try to do now, we will try to push this discussion down on a country level, on a community level, and after a while bring a new cycle for a discussion on a global level. That's how I hope the consciousness expands, or I say the density of consciousness increases, and our common awareness helps us to to make steps that individually we wouldn't even think about or not dare to make. But collectively, we can create space within which those steps are a normal step forward.
Sanchita, Ekaterina, we have another 2-3 minutes. Would you like to say something about the need or something, you feel like that you need to say it?
I would like to say, sorry,
Please.
I would like to say thank you to my colleagues on this panel discussion. That was amazing. And I wrote a lot of thoughts for myself, which I will walk with, because this discussion was incredible in terms of different perspective. Unfortunately, I don't have any experience in political view, and for me it was very valuable to see how it is from Violeta perspectives. And I've never had a co-founder, as I said before, and it's like another level of understanding how it works by Sanchita. So thank you so much. It was very insightful and helpful.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sanchita.
Yes, thank you for the generosity of perspectives shared today. I, as Ekaterina said, learned so much. I always learn from Violeta. Even if I wouldn't have said this right now, I do learn, I keep following her work on LinkedIn as well, and Rajni, yours as well. Now, coming back to the leadership, one thing that comes to my mind is no matter how much we talk about it, there is so much that needs to be done, especially when you talk about women leadership. And I feel movements like Ecocivilisation, and then, a lot of consistent, consolidated, and informed talks on these probably can help. Women can help in pulling each other up.
Absolutely.
We cannot look to men for that.
In fact, Sanchita, I had one thought that I should have one discussion around women leadership also. A group of women have become leader together. They are in the role of co-leadership. How healthy we are as a society to run that kind of leadership, because already, in eco-civilization, where of course we have men also, but we are, I guess, Violeta, we have more women in the eco-civilization, and we have experienced that leadership. And I was just discussing with Violeta that very rarely it happened that we might experience some sort of mismatch in the frequency of thoughts. And I mean, it is not necessary that you should have to accept the other person's perspective, but you should be respectful enough to lead together. That is more important. So we didn't experience. Yes, please, Violeta.
Rajni, I would just like to share one thought, because I cannot express deeply enough how grateful I am for this discussion. To Sanchita, Ekaterina, and you, Rajni, that you hold this space, because it's rarely that women have this opportunity to discuss content so openly and freely and put forward our own thoughts. But I will also use 2 examples, which I hope will inspire us in the future as well. First example is from Inca's empire, which was the biggest empire ever existed on this planet Earth. And they had one powerful approach that we all try to create incentives and space and thoughts, knowing that one will see beyond, and whoever sees beyond will pull everybody else into a new consciousness. And that's one of my guiding principles. The second one is from Africa, and we all know it. It's Ubuntu. I am because you are. I could never be without you, Sanchita, you, Rajni, you, Ekaterina. And that is something that is another guiding principle. And it has its roots in quantum physics. Observer makes a difference. Everything is connected, but observer makes a difference. So I'm really grateful for this opportunity. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your valuable time, enriching insights, and such a thought-provoking conversation around co-leadership. And we got to understand so many aspects that we didn't plan during this discussion, but that naturally happened with the flow. So thank you so much, Ekaterina, Sanchita, dear Dr. Violeta Booth, thank you so much. I truly appreciate your time and insights. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
the conversation. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.